So today we're just going to talk about something that we talk a fair amount about, but it's this idea of protection. And at NOM, we do talk, and not just NOM, but lots of places. Protection prayer / intentions. So, we talk a lot about journeys, we talk a lot about starting and ending right. To any segment of the journey. So a journey is, up the mountain. It's kind of a long thing. You take a break for a while, and you start again. And then slowly, over time, you build your way up the mountain. Okay. So every journey has starts and ends. So you get there. So how you start a segment how you end a segment helps you set up for a better, easier, probably faster ascent up the mountain. Okay. If you start and end poorly, it's going to be a long time, and you may die. If you start and end well, easier. So and this isn't new. This isn't like NOMs. Oh no, like this is actually quite common in all manners of spirituality. A common way to talk about it is protection prayers or intention setting. So, in the world of deep trauma therapy, it's even built in, right? Like after somebody comes and they've laid out all sorts of negative, dark stuff, and you help them process it, you got to do something to purify that space. You got to, or yourself, as a therapist, you got to do that. Most therapists do that. Some therapists will have, lots of technologies, indigenous technologies, technologies attached to certain religions and practices, just to create protection. In the Sikh tradition, we use mantras, and we use, a lot of households will have Sukhmani Sahib playing all the time, which is a protection and healing prayer, as a way to sort of just clear the energy. And so, protection prayers, so why do they work? What's helpful about them? And why are they helpful in recovery? I'm just going to say a few short things about this. So, fundamentally, what does protection give you? It gives you safety. So I want you to think for a moment about what non-safety feels like. Okay? So, to understand safety, a good way to understand safety is to think about a time when you haven't felt safe, or you haven't felt protected. And think about what postures do you adopt. So I asked the group here earlier, and so we heard a couple of things. We heard kind of fist clenching, getting ready to run, looking around, seeing all the exits, being alert, ready to respond, being restless, because being restless in boxing match, right? The boxer just standing there. You ever see a boxer who just stands there? What are they doing? They're bobbing. They're in a rhythm, right? You ever see a boxer who's like flat on their feet? That's a saying. You got caught flat on your feet, i.e., you got caught unaware. If you're aware, you're going to be in a rhythm, because you can kind of twist your body. If you're flat on your feet, it's kind of awkward, right? If you're already moving, easy to move, right? If you're still, it's going to take time and you may get hit. So a lot of people get fidgety when they're not feeling safe. I want you to just think about some of those body positions or tendencies, right, that you have. Maybe you sit on the edge of your table, tensed. And so ask yourself a question. How's your mind? Are you ready to learn something? What are you ready to learn? When you're in non-safety, you're going to be learning things in relation to immediate survival. When you're in non-safety, when you're unprotected, when you're vulnerable, or I should say when you feel vulnerable, when vulnerability is forced upon you. Okay? Vulnerability, when you choose it, is quite powerful. But when it's forced upon you, it's a different story. You're going to basically be in a learning mode that's really related to survival. So then you can learn all things related to survival. All things related to survival you will pick up and you remember, no problem. When you're in a protected mode, you're going to be able to learn all things in related to living. There's a difference, isn't there? Between living and surviving. What's the difference?
Your quality of life. Defensive versus, I guess, positive or?
Yeah.
Like
Okay.
moving forward instead of just standing still, like you were saying.
Yeah. Moving forward instead of standing still or just maintaining, like growing, right? Like, what else? What are some other differences between survival and living?
Like you're exercising the frontal cortex when you are living, and that is how we can continue to make like positive long-term decisions.
Like rational and irrational decisions.
Yes, exactly. So, short term, long term. We talk a lot about amygdala, frontal. I'm not going to get into all that. But so amygdala. Lots of videos on this, and I think window of tolerance talks more in detail, but a lot of videos talk about this. Frontal cortex. So in terms of journeys and healing recovery, right, there's a saying at NOM, 99% of stress is of your own making. And you might say, well, no, how come I didn't... My boss was mean to me yesterday. I didn't... How is that my fault? Well, I don't know. I wasn't there. But what I know about conflict is it always takes two to tango. Why do you have that job? Well, what put you in that position in relation to that person? What's the backstory? What's your 1% of that conflict? What is the issue? Why did you stay there long past you were, in a resentful state? There's a ton of reasons why you may have a part to play in the stress you have, that thing that seemingly just happened to you. Another one, a common one that I hear is, the driver behind me rear-ended me, hit my car. How is that my fault? The insurance companies, they say it's not your fault. It's like, one of those ones. But even that, I'll ask people, like, how many times you've been rear-ended? They'll say, like, 5-6 times. Come on, after 5-6 times, you gotta ask, are you a little bit happy on the brake pedal, They won't tell you that, though, right? But when you start fishing, it's like, we have a large role to play in a lot of what stresses us out. And a lot of that is poor long-term planning. A lot of that is survival thinking in long-term scenarios, like relationships. You know, if you have a phobia against hugging, hugging makes you feel unsafe. Okay, so don't hug. That's a short-term thing. But no hugs in a relationship over a long time results in destroyed relationship. Relationships are built on that intimacy, right? They're not built on the intellectual stuff. It's that emotional connection that forms the bedrock of a relationship. Hugs are a key part of that. Heart chakra to heart chakra, synchronization, right? There's something technological about hugs. Mindy was, she had a poster or something. She was saying 4 hugs a day. A day if you want to maintain, or if you want to just sort of keep the relationship meh. 8 hugs a day if you want to kind of really do some good work. Strong relationship. 12 hugs a day if you want to support growth. It's kind of profound when you think about it. But kind of makes sense when you think about children. Children need a lot of hugs, don't they? How many of you got 12 hugs a day growing up? It's part of the issue, isn't it? You know? So we can add intellectual mumbo jumbo into that, but it's like maybe that's all it is. There's reasons for that. Now, why didn't you get the hugs? Maybe parents were in survival mode. After not being hugged, maybe it doesn't feel safe to hug. So instinctively you don't give your kids hugs. It's not personal. It's just phobias. It's survival thinking messing up long-term living. So that's important frame to what we're talking about. So we're talking about protection prayers. A good recovery routine will start and end with some kind of protection thing. This could be across religions, it could be smudging, could be Hail Marys, could be Ad Gurinama, it could be some dua, it could be there's like a million traditions. But they are traditions. There's rules, there's systems, and we always suggest that you learn something. Why? Because when you say a protection prayer for the next couple of minutes or hours, you increase the protection around you and you let the guard down. And maybe Buddy wants to just give you a hug. It doesn't mean anything bad by it. If you do your protection prayer, maybe you'll let them. And heal a little bit more. If you don't do your protection prayer, maybe you're like, whoa, buddy. And then you make some reason why you don't feel sick. And blah, blah, blah. Right? Maybe if you say your protection prayer, someone like me says something that maybe is quasi-offensive, triggering. If you say your protection prayer, maybe it's like, yeah, it's good feedback. I should think about that. Don't say your protection prayer. Oh, Dr. Gill, he's a jerk. Why is he always saying that? It's like, right? Maybe Dr. Gill is a jerk. Maybe somebody is trying to help you or thinks they're trying to help you is a jerk about it. They may be. Our job in healing, though, is to take the good and leave the bad. Easier to do that if you're not going to take it all personally. Healing and teaching is impersonal. Impersonally delivered. And personally received. The safer you feel, the more likely you're going to take the good and leave the bad. One of the best ways to stuck yourself in recovery is to think people have something against you, and somehow people who should be perfect until they're not. So when they're acting perfect, they're great, and all of a sudden when they're not, you discard them. That's a great way to just rationally stuck yourself in recovery. In the West, we're real good at that. We cast down our leaders. Any teacher we seek to, we'll give them a chance, and then we'll find a flaw. Oh, I don't like their view on this, and then we go back to drinking or whatever, right? Because no one's trustworthy. The things that cause you to do that are big and long and probably intergenerational. Distrust is intergenerational, folks. I'll just tell you that. Your mom's, your dad's dad. It's all like intergenerational. Trust issues are not of this timeline alone. They're generational. And so I'm not saying you like sort of fix up your whole generations, right? What I'm saying is it's a journey. So why not, right before your recovery meeting, right before your therapist appointment, right before you go to church where you were traumatized, but want to go because you want to give it another chance, and why don't you just do a protection prayer? If sleep's a problem for you and you don't feel safe in your bed, why don't you do a protection prayer? Maybe you'll get a couple of minutes more sleep. If going to the washroom is unsafe, then maybe just go and, if sex is unsafe, say a prayer before that. What I'm trying to say is, have some technologies and use them regularly. Many times a day. Several times an hour. This stuff don't get old, right? Hail Mary makes you feel safe. Just use it wherever, and the more frequently you do it, maybe that segment of the journey goes better. Maybe it starts better, maybe it goes better, maybe it ends better, and you end in a better destination, so that your next segment of your journey can go better. Big part of recovery is to figure this out for you and to be open. So there's a lot of technology behind protection prayers. Why those words work, or those systems, or that ritual, or that thing. If you have a custom that you grew up with, use it. If it doesn't feel safe anymore, find something else. A lot of times when you find something else, it helps you get safe enough until you can use what you learned when you grew up. There's roots to what works for us in the way of protection. And I want you to just consider using these things regularly, because when you use a protection prayer, it turns off your survival mind just a little. Remember? Conscious mind and subconscious mind. Why do we stress subconscious mind at Nam? Quite frankly, is you don't know when you feel safe. By the time you feel unsafe, right? Unconsciously, you've been bubbling that for the last day or two. Unconsciously. And then it just comes into your mind, oh, I feel unsafe. But it's probably been there for a while, outside of your awareness. And that's what the hiccup is in recovery. You go into a meeting, you feel pretty good, feel like you're open, don't say your protection prayer, but subconsciously you're kind of 80% triggered. Right? So you go into the meeting, and then of course you don't get as much. So it takes humility to sort of think, oh, I might not be feeling safe unconsciously, even though I'm feeling safe consciously. I feel okay, but I might not be okay. That humility I think just a good way to deal with that is to just assume you're not going to feel safe before some healing thing. because that's the intergenerational long stuff that you don't have a lot of control over. But you do it, you buy yourself a good hour of safety, you get more out of that thing, you heal some stuff, you get ahead. Takes less time. Journeys faster up the mountain. So this is kind of the technology, or some of the logic behind utilizing and learning these things when you're doing recovery. Any questions about this? Does that make sense? Yes.
It's funny because, like, I do these things, but I guess I don't consciously know what they're doing for me. It's kind of like the prayers, like, just said them since I was, like, born, and never realized that they were actually having that effect on me.
Yes.
So it's kind of sometimes just the reminder, or even the being safe enough to hear what you're saying really helps.
Good. Thank you. Thank you, Shwana.
I just got a quick comment. It just came to my mind that when I am in survival mode, my options get really narrow and really limited. Whereas when I'm like living, my options to continue expand. So that's the contrast that I see, like, you know, between survival and living. It's about my options are different.
Good. Good awareness.
Mhm.
We always have more options. In a survival mode, you may have 2, but long term, you might have a 20 or 100. Tunnel vision, right? You deactivate tunnel vision. But the forces that tunnel us are kind of big. So we're constantly being tunneled. So you need to create space for yourself. And be aware that it's gonna, as soon as you create space, as soon as you've stopped, it starts to tunnel again, right? That's the nature of the mind. A cat's tail stays curled, or a dog's tail, especially. Try to straighten it. It'll be straight so long as you hold it, but as soon as you let go, it's going to curl again, because the curl is natural. Tunneling is natural to our mind, and so I think that's a great comment. Other comments, questions?
It's kind of profound because a lot of people speak about how a relapse can occur, months, days, weeks, or whatever before it actually happens. So it's kind of similar with you talking about, like, you're already, like, almost at the top of the bubble before you realize you're there. And there was one more thing I was going to speak on about that, but yeah, that's what I kind of related to.
Good, excellent. Good. So contemplate that. Take what's good. Forgive me if I offended, misspoke, and we will leave it at that for today.
Thank you, sir.